Back to the Brendan O'Neill Show with me, Brendan O'Neill, and my very special guest this week, Kelly J. Keane, also known as Posey Parker. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Okay. Keane here is a TERF. She is a typical hate monger, subhuman. And of course, she's going to spew all her lies and spin, and I'm going to debunk it. And the main thing I want to debunk is that she's going to try and blame the transgender community on men. And of course, I've got timestamp proving that it is female driven. This is an argument between two groups of women. Men have no voice. And this is why the MRM is so important if it got its act together, because men need a voice in society. This is an argument between two groups of women. Now, the couple of things I want to debunk right away. As you can see, this is a right-wing trad-com woman. So it proves that feminism is not a product of the left. And the other is the blue, dyed hair, ugly woman who can't get a man. This is a good-looking woman. She has a husband who, of course, pays for her lifestyle, and she has children. So she's a traditional conservative. And her husband knows she's a TERF, and he knows she hates his guts because of the way he was born. He's fine with it. That's the way men are. So those are two things debunked right away.
So much for having me.
It's always great to have you on. I think this is your third time, maybe your fourth time. You're a returning guest, which we love. And
yeah, how does she get to return? She has children, and children are the hardest job in the world, and yet these women have all this free time and have an easy lifestyle. So that gets debunked too.
There is a lot for us to talk about right now. So you will be known to many, many people as one of the finest defenders of women's and girls' rights against the transgender ideology or the transgender lunacy, however we decide to refer to it.
But these trans women, first of all, it's not about transgender. All you transgender people listening, this is not about transgender. This is about men, because this woman has no problem with trans men. If it was about the transgender community, she'd be equally concerned with both. She's not. She's concerned with people she sees as men converting into women and having female privilege. She wants to be top dog, and she doesn't want someone else. She doesn't want her inferiors, that's what she sees men as, her inferiors, gaining privilege. That's what's going on here. You'll have to understand that is the motivation and the only motivation. And these people do not care about children, I guarantee you.
And I want to start off by asking you whether you think the tide is starting to turn on all this stuff. So on the day that we're recording, it's been revealed that Maya Forstater has won her claim for discrimination. She was discriminated against on the basis of her gender-critical beliefs in her workplace. So she's won that case, and that sets a really good precedent for women in work who want to act.
Yeah. These women cannot be, quote unquote, canceled. Cancel culture is getting men fired. And you find women are immune to that. They're immune to that because that's what cancel culture actually is. It's just attacking men.
Actually talk about biological sex and the reality of sex. Also this week, we've had Macy Gray.
And this isn't about talking about the realities of sex. These are these women saying they don't want men having female privilege, because you know something? All these liars, they uphold any lie, like the patriarchy and the wage gap, when it benefits them. So this isn't about standing for the truth. And this is the other thing you have to debunk for these subhuman hate mongers. This is a subhuman hate monger, by the way. That's what she is. And they're continuous liars. So they are not, I don't like their people giving in to their spin about them being about the truth.
Who I love, coming out and saying that just because you lop off your bits doesn't turn you from a man into a woman. We've had Bette Midler saying sensible things. And before that, we've had Sajid Javid and Suella Braverman, former and current government ministers, as we speak, making sensible noises as well about pronouns and the problem with giving transgender treatment to children and all those kinds of things.
Now, this is nonsense, because I'm going to show you something. Here is a lesbian couple preparing to transition their son into a daughter. If they have a daughter, they will not transition the daughter into a boy. And the little boy is only 5 years old. He's too young to have any dysphoria or know what he wants. And these are women doing it. And it shows this lesbian couple, they could adopt a little girl if they wanted a little girl. But you see, they're hate mongers. They hate men. So they've adopted, or either the boys adopted, or maybe it was a case where the woman had a son with a man and then jumped with her lesbian lover. And once these lesbians get together, then they attack their helpless little boy children. So this is female driven. This is female hatred to the opposite sex, to the male sex, right? Okay. So let's not pretend that these hate mongers care about children. They hate children. This woman hates little boys, trust me.
So given that you've been working on this issue for a long time and trying to push forward the sensible viewpoint, do you think it's finally catching on? Do you think the tide is turning, or is there still a lot of work to do?
I think there's a lot of tidying up of this nonsense. I think that's what needs to happen now. So the right people have made the right noises. You know, Bette Midler has been a darling of the woke in the United States for a very long time. For her to say something like, oh, I don't know, we're allowed to be called women, aren't we, boys?
And I have nothing but contempt for Bette Midler. Because Bette Midler, as she said, she was backing these people as long as men suffered. But as soon as she had to pay some kind of price, now it's a problem. So I have nothing but disgust for Bette Midler. I just want to point that out. Because again, I want the trans community to understand. All you trans women, it's about you being men, changing into women, and these women having a problem with it. They live a privileged lifestyle. This housewife leech has a man working so she doesn't have to, and she has children, but she's not looking after them. She's over here enjoying her 15 minutes of fame in the sun, being a hate monger against men.
Boys, and for the misogynist kind of abuse that she's now received. I think.
Now, this is the other thing that ticks me off, is they try to use a term to attack men, misogynist, when it's really two groups of women fighting it out. By the way, all you trans women, the TERFs and intersectional women, lesbians, that's me, feminists, both hate your guts. It's just that the intersectionals find you useful as attack dogs against men. That's the only difference. Both of them hate your guts. It's just that all your backing is from hate mongers who find you as useful tools. And the TERFs hate you so much they can't tolerate you even as attack dogs. Know it.
More than her words, the response to her words will be quite revealing for many people, and it will enable more people to speak up.
Yeah.
Government ministers making noises, that's great. I always find it a bit weird. If you're the boss, if you're a government minister, that's sort of, I thought you were the boss, right? So I find it quite odd that they go.
They are the boss, and feminism is in all the positions of authority, and so they're the boss. And that's why it's being done. You just don't want to admit that other women are doing this. But first we'll get into, I just want to make sure, I'm going to show you that she's going to blame men when there are women involved.
Two questions in relation to those events. Firstly, what is it like to be in the middle of a mob calling you the F word, the C word, a fascist, and all those other things? So,
well, she's a TERF, so she is a fascist. That's a fact. There's nothing to debate. Hate mongers are fascist.
Describe what that's like for us. And then also, do you think it's beneficial, ironically, to your cause because more people will see just how deranged that side of it has become?
Well, from a PR point of view, it's exceptional. It's brilliant. It's everything I could ask for and then some. I'm 5'1", and then I've got massive blokes screaming in my face as I walk through, often smiling because.
See, she's trying to make this that it's a male-driven situation, right? She's massive blokes.
It literally is exactly what I want. You know, what are the optics? I mean, often on this side of the debate, we're told about be mindful of optics. Well, I don't ever agree with that.
That's a lie, because she's bragging up how this looks good. Now, before we go on it, here, look who he is. Women against TERFs. Look at this, right? Women again, and there's women there, right? Trans, but stand by your trans. Oh my God. More women. So she's trying to paint it that there was a bunch of guys giving it. Oh, here's a good pick. Uplift, protect trans voices. Those are definitely not, those are women, right? More women in the background. So she's trying to paint that the fact, this idea, it's not a fact, it's an idea, a false idea, that it was a bunch of men who are attacking her. It's not. Women fight with her all the time. She's even going to, I've got time stamped where she does.
I think that it's ridiculous not to carry on and move forward with what you believe to be right, just in case the optics are that the opposing, irrational, nonsensical idiots on the other side say something about it. So I've never really fallen for the optics game, but I do think if I was a trans activist, I might think a little bit more hard about whether or not it's a good idea for a big blokes, big, and I'm going to guess that these are big straight men because there's.
Why is she guessing that they're straight men? She's just telling both-faced lies. She can't tell what they are. She doesn't know what their orientation is, but she's trying to say, you know, any of the transgenders who don't know their place are straight men.
There's something really quite heterosexual about their energy. And these big straight men screaming in my face and calling me really hideous names, telling me I should be afraid, using expressions like you should be home looking after your kids.
That's a good question. Why aren't you? I thought looking at child rearing was the hardest job in the world. But notice, guys and girls, these housewives, the person who's working is the husband. And the children aren't worked to this woman at all. Thank you. Thank you, Keen, for debunking that for me.
I mean, it's just, it is a gift. What it's like being in that space at that time, I don't know whether I'm some sort of sociopath, but I don't feel afraid.
You are a sociopath, but that's not the reason why you're not afraid. This woman's not afraid because women don't fear men. She knows those men aren't going to touch her. She knows she has female privilege, and this is what she's fighting against these men from having female privilege. That's why these TERFs go ballistic when one of these trans women socks a woman in the face, the few times they actually do. Because they gain female privilege. It's two women fighting it out. And one woman's allowed to punch another woman. And this is what really gets under their skin. But notice she's not afraid of these people. That's right. She's not afraid of that because she knows there's no fear. This is not a brave person. If these men, or I should say these trans women, these women, I'll say that the women, if they posed a real threat to her, she would run like a little girl. She'd get the hell out of there. This is a complete coward. I want you guys to all know this. This is not a brave person. She doesn't stand on any principles other than man hatred. And all these feminists duck and run as soon as there's any real threat. Now, she's put that up. I want to make sure. We'll say, here we go. She admits it's predominantly mothers. That's 4520. Let's check this out. 4520. Yeah, right about here.
You could have a 7-year-old who the mother, and it's predominantly women that are encouraging their children to be trans, and I think that comes down to a bit of a Munchausen's by proxy, or a woman not feeling like she's much of a hero in her own life, so she hasn't done much, so she then promotes this kid as gender non-conforming, but she basically creates a trans child.
Thank you for admitting it. So it's female driven. So there's no point in trying to place this blame on men. Everyone, all you guys listening, men have no voices. The trans community wouldn't even exist if women didn't push for it and didn't drive it. They don't just support it, they're the drivers of it. And this woman's living in a glass house, so she should stop throwing stones. She's the last person who should say this woman hasn't accomplished anything in her life. This woman is a housewife leech. She hasn't done anything positive in her life. Matter of fact, she's done the opposite. She's a negative. She's just a hate monger. And she's working with these other trad cons, these other right wingers to attack men. So she's at the very least, her doing nothing would at least be harmless, other than being a leech to her husband. But she's just a liar and a hate monger. She's a real subhuman. Okay, so she's admitted that, and now here's another one. She argues with the female trans activist, 5210. Okay, good. Let's say 52. Let's put it right about here. There we go.
With me, who I absolutely adore, who writes it for the National Review, and she just cropped a nice little clip of me talking to a trans activist who was female,
of course,
who basically said, are you a biologist? I was like, he doesn't have female organs. I'm a woman. He's not a woman. And she says, are you a biologist? And I said, well, I'm not a vet, but I know what a dog is, which was a great line, even if I do say so myself. And
I actually agree. That was a great line. That was a great line. I think that was clever. But it's the motivations. She's not arguing this to make things sense. This woman is a liar by nature. She'll uphold any lies that attacks men, like the wage gap and patriarchy. So she's not about truth. She's trying to spin everyone that she's someone who stands up for the truth. These women will uphold any lie that harms men. It's only when it backfires on them that all of a sudden there are fighters for the truth. And again, she's arguing with a woman. And that's why this thing is happening, because it's an argument between two groups of women. Now, the other important timestamps, she said, my message to parents for you, I'm sorry, my message to parents is you are the best advocates for your children. She's contradicting herself there. I won't bother playing it because here's a lesbian couple that are parents, and they're making a little child, doesn't know what he's doing, into a little girl to attack him. They're damaging him, right? So parents are not the best choice for their children. I used to think that, but now I want the government involved more, because children, if they're under a bad parent, suffer and they become terrible adults. Now, I got a message for you. I don't agree just any women should just be allowed to give birth to children just because they can. Your uterus is a part of your body, but the people growing in it aren't. They're other human beings. And society has to consider them over you. So yeah, you can own a vagina and a uterus, but you aren't allowed to use them, just like a gun. That shouldn't be a right. It's a privilege. You have to prove yourselves as proper parents. Now, let's see what else. Oh yeah. Now she tries to blame the transgender movement on straight men, of course. Well, she already did, right? And that's been proven false. What's that? 108.48. Let's get it up here. There we go.
Well, I am going to Brighton on the 18th of September, so that should be so much fun. There's a lot of older gay and lesbian actually coming to that because they're fed up with their movement being co-opted by a load of straight men in dresses.
Now, this is pathetic. Because again, she admitted that it's women, mothers, that are pushing it. And again, I show you it's lesbians here that love to transition little boys into girls, right? The LGBT is the, the average woman and the LGBT are the drivers of the transgender group. Without them, they can't exist. It's that simple. So there's no point in listening to this liar try and gaslight and blame men for something women do. This is modus operandi for the average woman. They do something that is bad, they find a man to blame. It's that simple. And I've called out this bullshit. Oh, by the way, I didn't bother playing it, but she also talked about Biden. The Democrats, right, are somehow to blame for all this. When obviously all this has been pushed by women. It has nothing to do, it proves that this woman's a right winger. So all you guys who go on about, the left wing, knock it off. These women infiltrate both sides of the spectrum and they're everywhere. They're apolitical. They're the top dogs. So, okay, so I've said what I wanted to say about this. This is a hateful, subhuman person who actually does nothing but bring the society down. This is the kind of person that, at the very best, people should ignore. As far as I'm concerned, she belongs in prison. The society should be held from safe distance from terrible people like her. And she shouldn't be allowed to have children because she's going to be damaging to them. And all her spin and bullshit has been called out now. Thanks, everyone.